So now we're going to move into a tutorial of the Tinkercad program. And Tinkercad is an online free CAD software. So you don't have to download anything and you don't have to pay any money. It's free. You just have to go to the website at www.tinkercad.com and make an account. And so once you're on the home screen, you can click Create a New Design and it'll bring you to this screen right here. And the big thing that you'll notice is this blue square in the center of the screen here. And this is called the work plane. And this is where all of your designs will be built. So everything, all the designs that you build will be placed directly on the work plane, so that you can, so that they're fixed in space essentially. And to rotate the screen around, you can use the right button on your mouse. And it's very important that for when you're using Tinkercad that you have a mouse. It just makes things a lot easier. So if you want to rotate the screen, you can use the right button on your mouse. And alternatively, you can go to this square in the top left that says front, it says top. It has all the different directions on them. And you can click around the square to go to certain views. And you can also click and hold on the square to rotate around just like you would with the right button on the mouse. To zoom in and out on the work plane, you can use the middle button on the mouse. So you scroll in and you can scroll out. And you can also use these two keys here to zoom in and to zoom out. So what you also notice is this toolbar up here with different icons, and then this toolbar on the side filled with shapes. And Tinkercad is a little bit different than other CAD programs in that instead of starting with a 2D sketch and then turning that into a 3D object, you start with the 3D objects pre-made. And Tinkercad does allow you to customize these shapes and make your own, but that's pretty advanced and we're not going to move into that. So to start with a design, you choose a shape that you want, and Tinkercad has a lot of different shapes, and then you click and hold and drag onto the work plane. And so I dragged this cube on, and when you click on the shape, you'll see a lot of different icons pop up. And these little gray squares here are how you adjust the size of the object. And when you hover over them, you can actually see the size that it is right now. So these 20s are the lengths of the sides in millimeters. So this is the base of this cube is 20 millimeters by 20 millimeters. You can also check the height, and that's this top square right here. And you can also see that the height of the cube is 20 millimeters. So if I want to adjust the size, I can either hold one of these gray squares and drag to adjust the size, or if I have a specific dimension that I want, I can actually type in here the new dimension. So I say I want it to be 30. I click enter and now it's 30. So it's pretty simple in this way. And to move this shape around, when you click on it, you can either just click and hold on a place that doesn't have one of these squares on it. So you click just a space right here. You can drag the shape around. And so this only works if you want to drag it around on the work plane. But if you want to change its vertical position, you have to click this little black arrow on the top of the shape, and you have to either drag up or down. So now this dimension tells you how far it is from the work plane. So right now it's 19 millimeters from the work plane. So Tinkercad also allows you to rotate these shapes. So if you'll see when the object is selected, there's 3 sets of these curved arrows around here. And when you click and hold these, it'll allow you to rotate it in the direction you want. And it has 3 sets for the 3 different directions that this can be rotated. So dragging shapes around and changing the dimensions sometimes can be messy when you're working with multiple shapes because unlike other CAD programs, Tinkercad isn't as exact. You can't really enter dimensions with different shapes like you can in other CAD programs. So for that, you can use the align and the flip icons, which are these 2 buttons right here. So if I want to align these two red squares, I can select both of them. And the way you do that is you click one, then you hold the Shift key and click the other. And now both of these are selected. And to align them, it's this icon in the top right with the two rectangles. You click it, and all these different circles will pop up. And when you hover over these circles, it'll show you the different alignments that will occur if you click the circle. So say I want to click this center circle right here, and this will line the two squares up on this line. So now they're perfectly aligned with each other, and they're both the same size. So now if I want to stack them up one on top of the other, I can do that with another circle. So if I click this one, now they're basically on top of each other and they're occupying the same space. But if I click out of that align key and I bring one of them up, now you can see that they're perfectly aligned up and down. So you can also do this with another shape. So I select all three here, I can click align again, and then align the shapes in a way that I want. And I want them, all these, to be centered on the same vertical line. So right now I have the arrangement I want, so I can click out of that and I can drag this up to a position that I want. And so, oops. And if you ever make a mistake, you can go up to the undo key here, which are these arrows, and click it, and it'll go back to the way you had it before you moved the circle way off the work plane. So say I want this cylinder to be in the middle of these two squares. So for that, I can use, instead of dragging around, which can be kind of messy, and then you'd have to use the align key again, I can actually flip them with the flip key. And this is the icon right next to the align with the two triangles with the line in between. So when I click this, so like a line, these different arrows come up, and if you hover over them, they'll show the different arrangements that you get. And so these two right here, they're not going to do anything because what flip does is just switch the positions of the shapes. So right now, you can't really switch the positions with these two, but with these two, when you click it, it'll switch the position of the red square and the cylinder. So in this way, using the flip and the align key, you can easily change the orientation of a shape without having to drag around and change the dimensions. So now, say I want to group these different shapes into one shape, and Tinkercad allows you to do that. Because right now, if I want to make this move as itself, I couldn't really do that. But with the group key, you can. So to do this, you have to select all the shapes you want to group, and again, you hold Shift and click each shape. So now each of these shapes are selected. And to group them, you go over here to the group key, and you just click it. And now you know it's worked when all of them change to the same color, and now you can see that all three of those shapes were grouped into one different shape. So now if I move this around, it's going to move as one shape. And this is useful if you want to make complex objects that have a lot of shapes in them, and you don't want to have to move each shape each time. And objects can also be ungrouped using the ungroup key, which is right next to the group key. And this will turn it right back to the three separate shapes. So to change the color of a shape, you can also you click solid when you click the shape, and you can select any sort of color that you want. And this will make the designs more colorful, but if you are to be printing your design, then the color really doesn't matter, because the only thing that's going to affect the color is what filament you have in your printer. So this is really just for show on the screen. So now I've showed you the group, and now if you want to maybe change the shape by cutting a little bit cutting a part out, you can do that. And the way you do that is using a whole object. So I went over these solid colored shapes before, but I never really used these two gray ones up here. And these are gray because they're called whole objects. So if I want to, say, drag a box on here, and you have these two options. You have the solid, which is what it is right now. It's just a solid object. And there's also a hole. So if I click this, it becomes gray and semi-transparent. So these hole objects can be used to cut holes out of the solid objects. So if I'm not really going to be super exact with this, but if I drag this up so that it intersects the shape that I have right now, and I make it bigger so that it covers the entire part of the shape. So right now you can see this hole intersects part of this solid, the solid object. So now if I group the solid object and the hole together, then it'll actually cut out part of the solid object. And now you'll be left with this cut out solid object. And this is how you can get more complex shapes, is by using the hole objects and also the group button. So whenever you're working on a design, you want something a little bit more complex of a shape that you can get with the stock Tinkercad shapes. You can use a hole. So now, if you want to know the exact size of the object you're measuring or you're designing, you can click the ruler key and then click your object. And so this will give you a bunch of different dimensions. And you can also move the ruler around. So if you want to measure a certain thing, you are able to do that. So now it'll give you all these different dimensions, and you can use them to achieve certain design criteria if you're doing that, if you're doing something with 3D printing. And you click this X down here to get rid of the ruler. So I think I went over it a little bit earlier, but if you ever want to undo something that you did, you can hit the undo key right here, and you can also redo if you want to go back in the other way. This trash can is delete, so if you had a shape on here that you really don't want, you can just click delete and it'll remove it. You can also use the delete key on your keyboard. Duplicate allows you to make a copy of an object. And so when you select an object and you click duplicate, a little flash will happen, and it looks like nothing really happened, but then if you drag this around, you'll find that it created two different objects. So whenever you click duplicate to make a copy, you have to click and drag from the original object. It'll seem like nothing's there, but it did create a copy. If I just wanted to print one of these, I can click this and then click export, and I would say the selected shape. And to download it for 3D printing, I always use .stl files, and I think that'll work for you too. So when you click STL, it'll download it here, and then you can go and you can save it. And then from there, you would load that STL file onto your printer's software program. So that's it for the Tinkercad tutorial. So good luck with your designing, and I hope you can come up with something great.